Good morning, students. Welcome to the lecture of real analysis 2. In the last lecture, we have studied important lemma, which tells us that whatever is this Lebesgue measure we have defined, this is translation invariant. That is, statement says that for a measurable set E, we have to prove that E plus Y is a measurable set, and measure of E plus Y, that is Lebesgue measure of E plus Y is equals to measure of E. To prove this, initially we have to prove that E plus Y is measurable set. In order to prove E plus Y is measurable set, what the definition says that for an arbitrary set, for any set A, we have to prove this kind of statement. The outer measure of A is outer measure of A intersection E plus Y added with outer measure of A intersection E plus Y complement. Okay. But what is the thing known to us? E is measurable. If we have written the definition for E is measurable and knowing M star is translation invariant, we can write each and every term or each and every measure involved in this statement number 1 by translation invariant property. That is the outer measure of A is outer measure of A plus Y. Similarly, the remaining two also we have written. Then we have substituted all the values in the above equation, and this is what the statement we got. Okay. Later, we have just written this E complement plus Y is E plus Y complement, and that's why we were getting this kind of statement proving that E plus Y is measurable set. After proving E plus Y is measurable set, our aim is to prove that measure of E plus Y is measure of E. But measure of E plus Y is outer measure of E plus Y because both are equal for the measurable set. Lebesgue measure is equals to outer measure for the measurable set. But already we know that outer measure is translation invariant, therefore we have proved M star of E plus Y is M star of E. But again E is measurable, therefore M star of E is equal to M of E. Hence this lemma tells us that Lebesgue measure is translation invariant. Later we were going for an important preposition proving some 5 statements are equivalent. Okay, these are the 5 statements which we want to prove equivalent. The job I have told you already that while proving these 5 statements are equivalent, we were going to prove initially that statement 1, 2, 4 are equivalent, and then we will prove 1, 3, 5 are equivalent. The bifurcation we have discussed in detail. Because statement 1 is regarding measurability, number 2 and 4 gives the existence of the open set, rather supersets of the given set. Okay, but number 3 and number 5 gives us the existence of closed sets, which are actually the subsets of the given measurable set. Okay, now we have proved this first part, right? That is, we have proved already that 1, 2, 4 are equivalent. Now in today's lecture, what we were going to do? We were going to prove 1, 3, 5 equivalent. Once we do this, can we say all 5 statements are equivalent? Right now, because 1 is common to both the cases, you can say. Right? So for the statement we have started with E is measurable, then we have proved this 1 implies 2, then we have proved 2 implies 4, and then again 4 implies 1. Okay? Because this is what a rough idea I have told you what the statement means to us. Okay? Then while proving 1 to 2, we have seen in detail the existence of the superset O, rather an open set. Okay, with the help of this proposition. We have proved this proposition earlier. For given epsilon greater than 0, there exists an open set containing E such that outer measure of O is less than outer measure of E plus epsilon. By using this argument, we were going to just write this O as union of E and O minus E and just apply the same, and using this we have proved that 1 implies 2, 2 implies. I will not repeat the proof. Okay, in 2 implies 4 what we have written, actually in statement number 4 we have to prove the existence of yes G in G delta R, right? No, therefore it is countable union, countable intersection of the open set. In 2 we have proved the existence of open set. Now what we will do, for every epsilon, particular epsilon we will choose, for every epsilon we will prove the existence of one open set, and later we have taken its intersection. As it is intersection of open set, it automatically belongs to G delta, and then we have proved outer measure of G minus is 0, and we have lastly proved that 4 implies 1, that is by using 4 we have proved 1 is measurable. This is what step 3 we have completed. Okay, now let me go for step number 4 in today's lecture. We have to just continue, right? preposition proof, continue. Proof of preposition, continue. What is it? Step number 4, na?
Yes, ma'am.
3 steps we have proved actually. 1 implies 2, 2 implies 4, 4 implies 1. Now what is the claim in this? Now we were going to prove which 3 statements equivalent? 1 equivalent to 3 equivalent to 5. What should be my strategy of the proof? 1 implies 3, 3 implies 5, and then again 5 implies 1. What is the claim in this step? The claim is to prove 1 implies 3. Okay. Now what is 1? 1 is actually is measurable. If you let me write, given that is measurable set. And what we wanted to prove actually, yes, if anyone remember.
Existence of closed set.
Yes. Closed set which is a subset of E. Correct now? So shall I write this statement to prove that there exists for given epsilon greater than 0, I will write. Given epsilon greater than 0, there exists a closed set F contained in E with m star of E minus F less than epsilon. This is what we wanted to prove. But just have a look to the statement number 2, which we have proved already. That 1 implies 2, right? No. What we have proved in this? 1 implies 2 will give us for every greater than epsilon greater than 0, there is an open set containing E with this kind of statement. Now I am going to use the statement number 2 to prove statement number 3. Okay. Now what the job we will do, as of E measurable implies this statement, we know if E is measurable, its complement is also measurable. Therefore, E starting with E complement is measurable. Let me use this statement. What will be the statement there? For every epsilon greater than 0, there exists open set O containing E complement, right now? Containing E complement such that outer measure of O minus E complement less than 0, epsilon. Is the point clear? What I am going to do? E measurable implies this statement number 2. Now as E is measurable, E complement is also measurable. Therefore, let us use this statement number 2. Why complement we were using? Because whenever I use a complement, it gives us the statement of this type. What type? O contains E complement. Right now? Then if I take complement on both the sides, what it will be? What is the relation between O complement and E?
O complement is contained in.
Contained in. Therefore, whatever this, we will get as a subset of E. No? That is what we want to prove in this statement number 3. F contained in E. That is, we want to prove the existence of subset. And what is the nature of that subset? The nature should be a closed set. Now what I will do, I will just substitute this O complement as F. Therefore, whether it gives us the existence of F contained in E, that is F subset of E. Right now, second thing, if this set O is open, what about its complement?
Closed.
Closed. Right now, therefore, using this number 2 statement, we can prove number 3 very easily. What to do? Simply start with the complement. That is what I am going to do now. Right? Okay. By step 1. What is step 1 we have proved? 1 implies 2. Correct now? Given that E is measurable, here only I will write this implies E complement is measurable. E complement is measurable. Now by step 1, we were going to use the statement for E complement. Right now, as E complement is measurable, as E, why I am writing complement? This is measurable now. E complement is measurable. Okay, then what should I write? For given epsilon greater than 0, there is an open set. There is an open set. What kind of open set it is now? O containing E complement. Correct now? Such that. What such that? Outer measure of O minus E complement less than epsilon. Okay. I don't know what's the number. Shall I start with 1 again? Okay. Therefore, this is what 1 implies 2 we have used for E complement. For E complement. Now just have a look to this part. Actually, we wanted to prove E minus F, outer measure of E minus F less than epsilon. Therefore, here let us have a look to O minus E complement. Why this? What this O minus E complement gives us? According to the definition, A minus B. How we are going to define this?
A intersection B complement.
A intersection B complement. Therefore, how can I write this O minus E complement? Is it O intersection E double complement?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And what is
Yes,
double
ma'am.
complement? Is it E itself? Double complement is E itself. Now, for the sake of proving the result, I am going to write this as E intersection O, and just I am writing O as O double complement. Right now? And according to this definition, is it E minus O complement? Is it E minus O complement? What we have proved actually, O minus E complement is equal to E minus O complement. Now what the substitution I have to make? I have to keep this O complement as F now. Right? Take O complement is equal to F. Therefore, may I say F is, then F is, O is open. What about its complement? F is closed set. Right. One more, this F should be contained in, that is F should be a subset of E. But what we know, O contains E complement. Okay. Also, O contains E complement. What this implies about taking a complement relation? O complement is contained in E, no? O complement is contained in E, which implies F contained in E. Therefore, 2 points we have proved, that F is a subset of E, and second is F is closed set. Now let us just put the value here in this statement number 1. What we want to put in this? 2 I will put in 1, and then later I will put O complement as F also. Okay. Put 2 in 1. So what this becomes? Outer measure of, yes, I am going to put O minus E complement as E minus O complement. This becomes E minus O complement less than epsilon. Okay, but what is O complement we have taken? Yeah. Right now? Thus, we have proved the existence of a closed set which is a subset of E such that outer measure of E minus F is less than epsilon. Okay, and how we have proved? By using step number 1. 1 implies 2. That is, this 2 is giving us the existence of superset, which is an open set actually, with this statement. Outer measure of O minus E complement is less than epsilon. Is that okay? Any difficulty in this?
No, ma'am.
Good. Okay. Now we will go for next step to prove 3 implies 5. What we have to prove in 5? We have to prove the existence of a F sigma set, right? But what we know F sigma is countable union of closed set. Therefore, we will just repeat the step number 2 which we have proved, right? What we have done in step number 2, let me just repeat again. In step 2, proving 2 implies 4, that is, for this statement, that is for given epsilon greater than 0, there exists an open set O containing E. With this, we want to prove the existence of a G delta set with the condition outer measure of G minus E is equal to 0. But what we know, G delta is outer intersection of open set, right? Therefore, what we have done, we have taken a particular value of epsilon in terms of n. For this, we have given the existence of open set ON, and then whatever those ONs we have taken the countable intersection and we have proved the result. Same way we were going to do in this, right? Now while proving 3 implies 5, this is clear. Now here also what we will do, this step 3 gives us the existence of subset which is a closed set with this condition. So what we will do, we will again take a particular value of epsilon, same 1 by n, say for every epsilon we will have the existence of 1 fn, okay, with this condition, and then later we will take the countable union of those fn's. Therefore it gives us the countable union of closed set which will be nothing but giving you the existence of E of sigma set, right? Shall I proceed then? What to prove? 3 implies 5. 3 we know just now we have proved. Or shall I write it again? Given epsilon greater than 0, given epsilon greater than 0, there is a closed set. There is a closed set here contained in E such that, what such that? Outer measure of E minus F less than epsilon. This is what 3 means. We want to prove 5. What 5 we want to prove? There is a set F in F sigma with F contained in E such that outer measure of E minus F equal to 0. This is what a claim. Now we will use this statement to write for every epsilon equal to say 1 by n. For every epsilon equal to 1 by n, there exists one set, we will denote it by fn, right? Given epsilon is equals to 1 by n, there is a closed set. There is closed set fn contained in E such that, what such that? Outer measure of E minus fn less than epsilon. Okay. Now the next job, what we were going to write? We were going to take the set here to be countable union of all the subsets fn. We were going to take F to be countable union of subset, and as it is a countable union of closed set, may I write it belongs to F sigma. Right? It belongs to F sigma. Therefore, here we have proved F to be a member of F sigma. What the job remains to prove? F contained in E. If each Fn is contained in E, what about union Fn? May I say F is also contained in E? Fn's are subsets
Yes,
of
ma'am.
E. Therefore, if I take the countable union of all those subsets, it is surely going to be a member of E again. Therefore, F is subset of E. Okay, and now what is M star of E minus F? We will check out. Our aim is to prove M star of E minus F is equal to 0. This is our aim. Therefore, let us start with the left hand side and check whether it gives you 0 or not. Okay. What is F actually? This is E minus union affinities, no? Is the point clear to everyone? E minus Fn. Let me check what we have used in the previous step to prove this. G minus E contained in O minus E. No? Yeah, this is what the way we have used. I think we should go with the same way. Because if I write directly, this gives a trouble actually. Can I write directly less than 1 by n? Okay, see, Fn contained in E, Fn is contained in E. What about the relation E minus Fn? We have to find, na? Fn contained, just wait. E minus union Fn. Fn is contained in E. We want to find E minus Fn. Fn contained in F. What about E minus Fn? This is contained in E minus F. Whether contained in or contains? If A is contained in B, what about A complement contains B complement? If I take an intersection with anyone, C intersection E complement contains C intersection B complement. So this is going to contain, na? Contains, not contained in. Therefore, E minus F is contained in E minus Fn. Now let me take the outer measure. Outer measure of E minus F less than or equals to outer measure of E minus Fn. Now this will be the correct one. I'll just remove this step because this step is going to give you a direct answer. We will go stepwise. Okay, is the part understood? Fn contained in F will give us E minus Fn contains E minus F. That is E minus F is subset of E minus Fn. Therefore, what is the relation between outer measures? Less than or equals. Now, what is outer measure of E minus Fn? This is less than by epsilon. What is epsilon we have selected? What is epsilon we have selected? 1 by n. Therefore, here only you can write it. No, epsilon is equal. You can replace this epsilon by 1 by n. Okay. So this is less than by 1 by n. Now what we have obtained? M star of E minus f strictly less than by 1 by n. Now taking limit n tends to infinity. Taking limit n tends to infinity. What we get? There is no n on the left hand side. Therefore the left hand side is independent. Therefore it is as it is. M star of E minus f. 1 by n actually gives you tending to 0, that is less than 0. But outer measure is not less than 0, therefore what the possibility remains? This is equal to 0. Outer measure of E minus f is equals to 0 and hence the proof we have given. Okay, is the part clear? Yes, students, am I audible clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Therefore, what we have proved? We have proved the existence of a F sigma set such that outer measure of E minus F is 0. Okay. What is F sigma? We know countable union of closed. Therefore, we have proved this. Now, let us go to prove the last step. What this last step number is? 6, no? What we wanted to prove? 5 implies 1 again. What is 5? 5 we have proved just now. The existence of a set F sigma such that outer measure of E minus F is equal to 0. And what is 1 we wanted to prove? E is measurable, na? E is measurable set. Now to prove E is measurable, what we will do? We will try to write this E as E union of two different measurable sets. Okay. What we know actually, we have proved in step number 5 that outer measure of E minus F is equal to 0. If the outer measure is 0, what is the nature of E minus F? Whether it is measurable or not?
Measurable.
Yes, it
Measurable.
is measurable. Yes, it is a measurable set. What about the set F? as F is the element of F sigma, as F is element of F sigma, may I say F is measurable?
Yes, ma'am.
Because this is countable intersection of closed set. Every closed set is measurable. If a countable intersection of measurable set is measurable, therefore we get F in F sigma to be measurable. Now, can I write E as in terms of these two sets? Let us check how. This is E, this is F. Okay, because now we were going to write this E as union of F and this part. Correct? What is this part actually?
E minus F.
Yes, it is E minus F. But we know E minus F is also measurable. Therefore, if I write, okay, hence, if I write E as union of E equal to F union E minus F, provided both the sets F and E minus F are measurable. Therefore, may I say E is measurable, and hence the proof. Is measurable set. Hence the proof. Any difficulty in this? If you have, you can ask.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we have proved 1 implies 3, 3 implies. Let us check. Hence, initially. Thus, we have proved. Let us start from the first. 1 implies 2, 2 implies 4, 4 implies 1. Again, this 1 implies 3, 3 implies 5, 5 implies 1. These many steps we have proved in our step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 steps we have followed. Okay, therefore may I say all these 5 statements are equivalent?
Yes, ma'am.
All statement 1 to 5 are equivalent. Actually, this proposition is very important from the point of view of solving the examples. Here we will solve 1, 2 examples so that the idea is continued. 1, 2 examples I will give you for homework also. Okay. So for the existence of the equivalence of these 5 statements is used many other times while proving the examples and the theorems as well. Yes, throughout the preposition, in all 6 steps, if you have any kind of difficulty, you can ask me. Step by step we have proved actually. Therefore, I don't think so there is any problem. But if you still have a problem, you can ask me at any time. Okay. Shall I go for a next point then? Next is actually
Yes,
one example. One example it was asked us to solve. What the example says is, example says that let E be a measurable set. Let E be a measurable set. Then prove that there exist Borel sets. There exist Borel sets B1 and B2 such that B1 contained in E contained in B2 and measure of B1 equal to measure of E equals to measure of B2. This is an example we wanted to prove. Okay. Now see, the example is actually to prove the existence of Borel set. One is a subset of E, another one is superset of E. Right? One is subset of E, another is superset of E with this kind of statement. All the measures are same or equal. Now to prove this example, we were going to use 2 statements of previous proposition, which gives us the existence of set in G delta, set in F sigma, where outer measure of E minus F and G minus E both are 0. Therefore, let me write directly by previous proposition. By previous proposition, there is a set G in G delta and F F sigma such that. What such that? F is subset of E, no? And what about this G? Superset of E, correct? And outer measure of G minus E is 0. Also, outer measure of E minus F is 0. This is what we have proved in the previous proposition. Now here also we have the existence of one subset and one superset. Okay. Sometimes this relation contained in was written with this symbol or sometimes it is this. But both it means the same. Meaning is same. Okay. Don't get bothered about this. Sometimes it was written like this. Sometimes it was with this symbol. Okay. Now here also we want to find the existence of two Borel sets. One is subset, one is superset. Here also we have the two sets. One is subset, one is superset. Therefore, if I call this F as B1, G as B2, then half of the problem will be completed. Right? If I call F as B1, G as B2, then already F is an element of F sigma, G is an element of G delta. Therefore, we know already these class are the class of Borel sets. F sigma and G delta are the class of Borel sets. Therefore, it will give the existence of Borel sets B1 and B2. The job remains only to prove all these three measures are same. All these three measures are same. Okay. Let us continue the example. Okay. Now I am going to write E as of we have discussed earlier as the union of F and E minus F. Right now? Here I have explained it already. Now if I wanted to write in terms of G, how can I write? E in terms of G and E I wanted to write. But we know the fact here E is subset of G. Here E is subset of G. So here I am going to write G. How can I write G now? Is it E union G minus E? Correct, no?
Yes,
F
ma'am.
is subset of E. E can be written by this complement, this union. G can be written like this. Now let me take the measure on both the sides. What this measure of E gives us then? We know Lebesgue measure is countable additive, finite additive also. Therefore, can I write it as measure of F plus measure of E minus F? Okay. Also, what about measure of G? Measure of G will be measure of E plus measure of G minus E. Correct? But what we know, both these values are 0. Measure of G minus E, measure of E minus F. Correct? Right now, why this M star is equals to M? I am equating M star of E minus F equals to M of E minus F equal to 0. Right? Because for measurable sets, outer measure and Lebesgue measure coincide. Similarly, outer measure of G minus E is equals to Lebesgue measure of G minus E equal to 0. Equal to 0. Right? Therefore, if I put both the values here, what we will get? M of E is equals to M of F, measure of F. Then measure of G is equals to measure of E. Therefore, equating both the statements, we will get measure of F. I will get measure of F equals to measure of E equals to measure of G. Okay. Now we will take what we will take? We will take F is equals to B1 and we will take G is equals to B2. Then what kind of relation we will obtain? B1 contained in E contained in B2 and let us substitute in the whole statement. M of B1 is equals to measure of E is equals to measure of B2 and hence the proof. Okay, also one can write a statement B1, B2 are Borel sets. B1, B2 are Borel sets. Okay, hence the proof of the given example. Those are the elements of F sigma. F sigma G delta are the class of Borel sets, right? Those are the actually Borel sigma algebra. Why Borel sigma algebra? Because both will be closed under countable intersection, countable union. For it will be form sigma algebra and Borel sigma algebra also. Is the point clear? This example, very easy it is. Okay. Shall I go for the next example?
Yes, ma'am.
Next example. What the next example tells us? If E1 and E2 are measurable sets, E1, E2 are measurable sets, then prove that. What it is asked to prove? It is asked to prove that measure of E1 union E2 added with measure of E1 intersection E2 is equals to measure of E1 added with measure of E2. This is what we wanted to prove. Now the proof we will give in two cases again. In case 1, if any one of the measure is infinite, what will happen? Either measure of E1 infinite or measure of E2 infinite. If measure of E1 infinite, what about measure of E1 union E2? It is going to be infinite, right? Therefore, this statement is going to hold automatically, holds trivially. Infinity is equals to infinity. Correct now? Let me just write if either measure of E1 equal to infinity or measure of E2 equals to infinity, then what about measure of E1 union E2? Either measure is countably additive.
Infinity.
Na? This will be written actually as m of E1 plus m of E2. Correct? No. Therefore, what is the value? Infinite again. Therefore, may I write the equality holds trivially. The equality holds trivially. Okay. Therefore, the case remains to prove if both the measures have finite values. Both the measures E1, m of E1 finite and m of E2 is also finite. Then we have to discuss the cases. Okay. Therefore, both these E1 and E2 are finite measurable sets. Therefore, what about their intersection and union? Whether they are measurable or not?
Yes, ma'am. Measurable.
Yes. Therefore, then we were going to discuss. Then E1 union E2 and E1 intersection E2 are measurable sets. Are measurable sets such that now I am going to write both this union intersection in terms of E1 and E2 because anyhow I want to prove this kind of result. Okay, what I'm going to do now, E1 union E2, E1 intersection E2, both we were going to write in terms of E1 union E2. For that, what I'm going to write initially, let me come to the next page. Okay, what I will write first, E1 union E2 I will write. Okay, now E1 E2 are given to be measurable sets only. It is not given what is the relation between them, whether they are having intersection, whether they are disjoint, whether E1 is subset of E2 or E2 is subset of E1. Now, considering all the possibilities, we have to make a common statement. So, for the first statement I will make is if they have some intersection, say, okay, if they have some intersection like this is the intersection, say, E1 and E2. Let this be E1 and let this be E2. And what is this common region? E1
Intersection.
Okay, good. Right. Now I'm going to write this union E1 and E2 as. See how I'm going to write? I'm going to write this as E1 union with something. How can I write this as E1 with something? This E1. What's the part remaining? This part is remaining only. Correct, na? right? E1 union E2 I am writing as a disjoint union of two sets rather. I am going to write disjoint union of two sets. Therefore, E1 union E2 I am writing E1 union with this green shaded region. What is this green shaded region is?
E2 minus E1.
Yes, it is E2 minus E1, which is actually E2 intersection E1 complement. Correct, no? Therefore, shall I write here it is E2 minus E1. Is the point clear? Okay. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
also E2 I wanted to write the disjoint union of the two in terms of E2 minus E1. Okay, therefore one part is sure to me. It is E2 minus E1. What should be added so that I can get it as E2? Okay.
E1 intersection E2.
Yes, it is E1 intersection E2. Correct. That is, I want to form E2. One part I have taken as E2 minus E1. Therefore, the part I have to add is E1 intersection E2 in order to get E2. Now this is true if they have, this is what the case we have discussed by taking intersection of E1 E2. If these two are not intersected, if these two are disjoint sets, what will happen? Whatever we have written is correct or not, that we have to think simply. What is E1 union E2? This is E1 union E2. What is E2 minus E1? What is
E2 itself.
to itself. This will be E2 itself. Therefore, this gives us the value. Again, what about second one? E2. Okay, E2 in the second possibility. Can I write as E2 minus E1? What is E2 minus E1? Is it empty? No. E2 minus E1 is E2 intersection E1 complement. What is E2 intersection E1 complement? Is it E2 itself? And what is E1 intersection E2? Empty. Now the second is also true in this possibility. Therefore, whatever is the possibility you discuss for E1, E2, okay, whatever the two statements we have written are true. This is what I wanted to tell. One more possibility remains to discuss that. What will happen if E1 has a subset E2? Whether these two are true or not, that we have to discuss simply. What is E1 union E2? This is E1 union with. What is E2 intersection E1 complement? This is 5. Right now, in this case, that is 5. What about E2? E2 can be written as E1 intersection E2 will be E2 itself. What is E2 intersection E1 complement? This is E2. E2 intersection E2 is E2. Therefore, whatever is the possibility, whatever is the relation between E1 and E2, these two statements are true. Okay. Now again, these two are the disjoint unions. Here I can write, since these unions are disjoint. Correct, no? Therefore, if I take the measure on both the sides using countable additivity property, what is measure of E1 union E2? Is it measure of E1 added with measure of E2 minus E1? Let me call it as statement number 1. Similarly, let us use it for the second one. So measure of E2 is measure of E2 minus E1 added with measure of E1 intersection E2. Let me call it as statement number 2. What is the job? We want the addition of E1 union E2 and E1 intersection E2. So which operation should I follow in these two? So that I get measure of E1 union E2 added with measure of E1 intersection E2. What operation should I take? Can I take the addition? What will happen if I take the addition? Whether any addition is okay for us in order to get this kind of result. Measure of E1 union E2 added with measure of E1 intersection E2. Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Ah, can we take the addition? What will happen if I take the addition? If I take the addition, this will be on the right, this will be on the left. And if I shift the term on the left, this will be with a negative sign. No? Means we will get a subtraction of these two quantities. But what we want? Addition. Therefore, let us take a subtraction. Okay? If subtracting 2 from 1. Subtracting 2 from 1. What will happen if I subtract? This is m of E1 union E2 added with m of E2. Addition of left hand side. What about the, subtraction and 2. What about the subtraction of the right hand side? May I say this term will be cancelled? V remains with m of E1 minus m of E1 intersection E2. Let us change the positions as per the result. Therefore, this intersection taken on the left will be plus E1 intersection E2, m of E1 as it is on the right, and we will shift this m of E2 on the right. This is m of, and hence it is the product. Yes, any difficulty in this example also you can ask. This is what we have proved. For the first case of infinite major, this is trivially whole. Therefore, we were going to discuss the case for finite major. Therefore, for this, we have written E1 union E2 and E2 as a disjoint union of the sets, right? And just taking some algebraic operation, we will get the result. Okay. Similarly, you have to prove some examples and giving for homework. Okay. First example is if E1 and E2 are measurable set with finite major, measurable set with finite major, then prove that. It was already given, it is a finite major. Okay, then what we wanted to prove? First is measure of E1 symmetric difference E2 is 0. How the symmetric difference is defined? I think in the earlier lectures taking a basic, I have told you what is the symmetric difference. Second measure of E1 minus E2 is measure of E2 minus E1. Third measure of E1 is written as measure of E1 intersection E2 equal to measure of E2. Okay. Example number next 4 say. Okay. If E1 is measurable, measurable set and outer measure of E1 symmetric difference E2 is equal to 0, then show that E2 is measurable. E2 is measurable. Okay, try for these examples. Symmetric difference definition I have taken already while taking the basic sessions for this real analysis too. You just see what is a symmetric difference and try to prove both the example number 3 and 4. The next point, or rather the last point of this first unit, is the existence of non-measurable sets. Because we have discussed up to now regarding measurability only. We have not seen non-measure till now. Okay. So the last point we were going to study is non-measurable set. Now, in order to understand non-measurable set, we have to understand a special kind of binary operation, addition modulo 1, that we will take. And later, by taking this, we were going to understand what is translation invariant modulo 1. By understanding both the definition, we will go for understanding the existence of non-measurable set. Okay, rather we were going to prove that there exists a non-measurable set in the interval 0 1, closed 0 open. This is what we were going to do in the next lecture. Time being, let me stop for today. If you have any difficulty in today's lecture, you can unmute yourself and ask. Yes, students, if you have a difficulty, you can ask me. No difficulties, it seems to be, right? Okay, let me stop for today. You just have a revision of the points we have taken in today's lecture. In the next lecture, we will take the last point of non-measurable sets, and then this unit number 1 will be complete. Okay, thank you for being with me for this today's lecture.